Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Frame Live. We've been talking over the last few weeks about different centers that are opening up and their journey that they've had while closed. Today, we have the pleasure of having Dustin Schmidt. He is with the United States Air Force Bowling Programs, and he is here with us to share with us kind of what's going on in the military world and specifically in the Air Force and how they are adapting to this pandemic. Welcome, Dustin.
Good afternoon, Dottie. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely my pleasure. Well, Dustin, we have, as I said, we've got a number of centers that have opened back up and they've had to change things on the fly. They had their plans in place and they opened back up and they've made changes. They've had to modify things as they go, but we're learning as we go. We're learning that we're listening, we're watching what our customers are doing, and we're making changes. So we're starting to ease our way out of this. And the military centers are very much like centers on the outside, civilian centers. They want to provide a great entertainment experience for their heroes and their families while making a profit as well. I will say on the outside, the might be reversed a little bit, but still the same outcome is expected for civilian centers. So I want to share first, you have a total of 79 centers in your fleet. Am I right?
79 centers? Yes, currently 78, and in 20 days to complete our 79 center portfolio.
Oh, very good. Well, it's hard enough to handle, one or two or just a few, but to handle that many, I'm sure it gets a little bit chaotic from time to time. Out of those centers, how many do you have open?
Currently, I believe the number is 52. Now that I'm back on the spot, of course, I forget.
It's okay. We're not going to put you on the spot too much.
I apologize. 51, which is 65% of our portfolio. It's open for bowling, which would include food as well. And then we have a handful of centers that are the snack bars open, but only many cases only takeout or curbside. And the ones that are open, we continue limited seating, trying to maintain space requirements, and limited capacity for the ones that are open for bowling. So usually a pair or lane in between left open and that kind of thing. So 65% are open in some form with pretty heavy restrictions still.
Okay. Now, and I'm just curious, during the time that the centers were closed, or those that are still closed, are there food and beverage operations still going?
So only in 53 of the 78. So I know it gets a little bit confusing or misleading. So any of them that are open for bowling certainly have food in some capacity. So that's 51 of the 78. And then 53 centers have snack bars open. So there are a few that are only snack bar. Typically they're takeout only though. And that number changes weekly. Every week we go in and check, what the new status is. And interestingly enough, it's not like they all went offline and slowly come online. They go back and forth. So we've had a few centers that have closed initially, reopened, reclosed, reopened again for different reasons. In some cases, maybe they had a spike on the base with positive COVID cases, or in other circumstances, they recognized that just because they could open, that maybe it wasn't beneficial financially to be that limited in capacity. So the bases would make, bowling's part of a bigger portfolio, as you're aware, with the Morale, Welfare, and Recreation Fund, with several activities under it and businesses. So some installation commanders may make the decision to say, for food options, we're going to open certain facilities based on maybe location or employee status or that kind of thing. So in some cases, they may be open for that, and then they determine they want to open something else, or another entity opens like a contracted food and beverage operation or AFES. So without being convoluted, it's still pretty fluid. So it's not just an offline back online type of situation.
Yeah, and I would assume, do y'all abide by the state guidelines, or do y'all have your own guidelines that are set out by the Air Force?
So quite often, so it's all of the above, of course. Quite often, no different than when you start talking about food safety. The bases, the Air Force tends to follow, food code, or in this case, what the state and local requirements are, and then they add their own requirements that many times is stricter than outside guidelines.
For
And
sure.
again, in many cases, because again, with each enterprise being owned by each installation commander, as opposed to being a corporate entity where we dictate to all 79, each one's really an individual franchisee based on their each individual commander on the base. They kind of have their own wiggle room, so they certainly make their own policies, but by and large, they're following or stricter than local guidelines, state and local.
Okay. And we've talked a lot about on previous shows, and some people just they really don't like the term the new norm. But it's inevitable that things will be different when we come back, when all the centers are back online. You have different expectations from the employees, the customers have different expectations, and it's just inevitable that we won't be operating things the way we've always done them in the past. So do you already, with the centers that are open, are you finding that they have already started establishing a new norm? And if so, how are the employees reacting to that?
So I'm glad you asked me that, and I know we've discussed that previously in other meetings that we've had. My stance really is I think we're closer to a new norm now than what many want to believe we're in. I just don't think we're used to it yet. So absolutely, I think this is closer to the new norm, and I think the standards being set now based on making guests feel comfortable and safe, and that we're have a clean environment, and that we're going to cater to their health and their needs as much as anything. That we're not just looking at them as a number of a dollar amount. We look at them as a guest. Like, we're going to take care of you, and
Sure.
the business will flourish. I mean, we've always kind of said that we work in a business of entertainment. If the customer's perceived entertainment surpasses the cost, the price doesn't really matter. They will pay. I think we've proven people will pay for entertainment.
You
Well,
are
we
so
have to
right.
entertain them. They're going to have to be entertained because they will go pay for it somewhere else. And without going deep into that, I've always called it the Disney effect. I've read a lot about the perceived Disney effect of, it used to be, well, Disney World does it the best and everybody else is second rate, so they don't expect it. And it's certainly going to be more so now, even coming out of this pandemic. People expect a similar level of service no matter where they go to what Disney offers.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And as you said, the experience itself is coming out of the pandemic. The experience itself is obviously going to be different. There's, new restrictions. The old high five that we used to do, well, that's off limits. So we are going to have different things that go into making a great experience. And, there's certainly going to be a lot of the same elements that we've always had as part of the great experience. But now we're going to have things layered on top of that, like, starting out with the facility. That now is a part of that experience, is the cleanliness and the safety that the patron feels when they walk through the door. That's now all part of that experience. So it's made us have to think things through a little bit differently. And I think that's okay. I think that, if something good's going to come out of this, it's going to be that we're looking at things a little bit differently. And I know, I think it's very interesting. You had shared with me before we went live today that you had actually visited with a number of the centers, or you had gotten feedback from number of the centers in preparation for today's show, and that there was a wide spectrum of feedback that you got. But I think it's really interesting that uh, communication, and going back to the fact that you reached out to your center managers and your center staff to get feedback from them. That's something else that, the pandemic has made it very important. I'm sure that you probably stay in closer communication with your centers now because things are changing so rapidly. And the fact that you had mentioned that you reached out to your centers and you had gotten their input and their feedback so that they were included, even though they're not all on this screen with us today, you had their input in what was going on and what was being discussed on today's live show. So I think that that's also something that we can take with us moving out of this pandemic, that we need to be better communicators. Not just as operators from our center, but I can even say on an individual basis. It's made me be more mindful of the fact that I wasn't a very good communicator. I wasn't checking on my neighbors like I was supposed to be or like I should have been. I was always too busy. I was always too busy to do this or call that person. And I think from a business standpoint, it's shown us that that's valuable. That's a valuable part of our business. And when we are in communication and we do talk to people and we do talk to our employees and we get feedback from them, that helps us to have a more loyal employee or a more loyal customer. And those are the important things. And those are the things that are going to really help us get back on our feet post COVID-19, in my opinion. Let me ask you this. What lesson has the pandemic taught you?
So, that can be twofold, obviously. I've got some personal ones, of course, and one I'm going to piggyback. You're absolutely right that it's made me want to communicate more with managers and find out, A, are they okay? How are they? How are they and their family? How are they holding up? It's easy to think of customers as numbers with dollar signs, and it's easy to think of managers as mechanical beings that are there to do a job. And you forget sometimes in that realm that they're people, and leading people is taking care of them and helping them and paving the way for them when they don't see the right path, or learning that their path sometimes is better, that they don't have to be head of Air Force bowling to say, I have an idea that would work. I'm all ears. Let's say you do.
Right.
More communicative for sure. I've said this before and not afraid to say it again. I think if this pandemic hit 5, 7, 8 years ago, I don't think the economy, the world, or us were prepared for it. Technology now gives us the opportunity that we might find out that this new norm, this being more attentive to detail and cleanliness and germs and people's health could really help the bowling business, because as you know, bowling is a very personalized business. A league bowler is a country club member that they want to be taken care of. They want to be important. And somewhere along the line, I have forgotten how to take care of them, saying you're just a number and your numbers are smaller, so we're going to cater to you less. And I think we've proven they may be the ones more loyal coming back first, that maybe we forgot about who got us here, and maybe they are as important. And I think there could be circumstances where, is it possible our leagues, competitive bowling, that side of the spectrum that is, many would claim is dying, or sell the stock, it's gone, you've missed the point. Maybe because we didn't massage it a lot lately. Maybe we've forgotten who we are. We're a very blue collar sport when it comes to that. And that's a good thing. Like this is a tremendous industry that I think we've forgotten some of that. So I think this helps kind of come back to, I wonder how the league bowler is doing. I mean, you call it the league bowler, but we know who they are, and say it's the same in a smaller center. Maybe you have the same 24 people that bowl 3 of your leagues and they're there all the time. they're the ones we sometimes are like, oh, here comes Jim. Every time Jim comes in, the approaches are tacky. You know what though? That's because he cared.
Yeah.
So we saw it as, oh, he's complaining. It's more of, man, Jim, how are you? Like,
Yes.
you know, so I think this could help us. I think it really could. I think it could help us build those relationships because we're very, so the better way to put that is that we're in a repeat customer business. It's the same customers coming in more often as opposed to different customers all the time. So it doesn't take much to lose them if they feel like they're not valued at all. So
You are
I have
so
a great opportunity. And I know you and I talked about it, and it's my chance to share that on here, but we have an opportunity to take care of the people that love the game and the sport of bowling, and that will grow it. Without question, that will grow the whole business. So,
you know, and since we are devoting our show today to the Air Force and the military, I hope that you have a number of your centers that are going to watch this or join our show afterwards. But, you know, their role has always been to create a very personal connection with the family. And as a military spouse for many years, that is something that is very important to their patrons. So now, more than ever, to create that camaraderie and to create that connection that is so important to a military family, to know that you have some place that you can go and they're going to know who you are. I think back to the Cheers where everybody knows your name. That's kind of the way it is in a bowling center. That's when you can give a customer that feeling. They're going to naturally want to come back because it feels like home. It feels good. And I think the military centers play such a huge part in that family being disconnected from its true family. And they many times are able to fill that void for those families. So I think some of the times they don't really realize that they really are doing that, and that's something that's very valuable to the military families and the soldiers and their families. So just want to mention that because it's something that played a big part in my life. So, well, you know, the pandemic, like you said, has caused many things, and I think the fact that it has made us pull back and really take a good look at every single aspect of our business was good. I don't like that it came as a result of such a horrible situation, but it has given us a new perspective on things. And if we take the knowledge that we've gained with us coming out of this pandemic, you know, Dustin, I really wholeheartedly feel that if we continue the momentum of the things that we are doing very well now, and we continue that momentum out of the pandemic, that the centers will come back stronger than before. You had shared with me some of the results and the feedback that you had gotten from the centers, and you know, some are considerably down and some are not as much down, and so it's all over the place. But I really feel that, you know, coming out of this, that we're going to wind up strong on the other end. Um, is there any of that feedback that you found that was just really startling that you wanted to share?
Yeah, startling in one sense of very positive. We actually have a center overseas in Japan that their snack bar sales, the food and beverage sales, has increased as much as 12% a month.
Wow.
So interesting. A couple different things that cause that. So, and that's not a one-off. There's some other scenarios, but without question, they're at that center is one of our best managers, and she is probably one of our most in tune with a customer and employee manager. And I think it just solidifies you know, you can read books and watch videos and whatever the case on great leadership and quality, you know, irrefutable laws of leadership. And you can read that book and there's so many things, but sometimes you can read it all day and you see a real life example of it actually working. And that means more, you know, what's the whole picture's worth 1,000 words. There it is. Like,
Absolutely.
there it is in a nutshell. And she is terrific, one of the best. So
Well, that I say thumbs up for that center. That's amazing.
yeah, one the shout outs to it's Misawa in Japan. Just they do a terrific job. And they have great leadership all the way up. So I mean sometimes it takes a team and they have a great team. But without question, I think there's some situations where it's been really strong. We have some negative feedback, rightfully so, that this pandemic's really creating hardships on people. As we all know, bowling is a small business and is a penny business. And you really have to do everything you can to grow revenue and then watch your expenses to try to keep in that 96, 97% range. You may only make 3-4 pennies on the dollar. And so now we have less capacity in the center between dining and lane usage. So less potential for revenue. And we probably have higher expense, well, almost certainly, because you almost need that bathroom attendant. You need the liaison at the front that helps people feel secure and know where things are and make sure everybody's got the keeping things clean and full and sanitizer solution and soap and paper towels and bathroom checks every 10 minutes and disinfect. I mean, those are the things people need and will need for a considerable amount of time to be safe as well as feel safe. Well, those are all expenses, all of it. So we have more expense without question, more stress on the staff to do more things like that, and less potential revenue. That's a very scary recipe in the short term. So without question, it's creating limitations and of course irritations and uncertainty for sure. We have some uncertainty.
Absolutely is, and that's not just in the center. I mean, it's just it's across the board, and certainly something that we need to be mindful of, watching out for one another and for our employees. Well, Dustin, we are nearing the end of our show, and I want to say how much I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on our show today. Is there any closing message you would like to say to your centers or to our viewers?
Only I really want to say great job, not just as managers, but as people. You said it a little bit earlier, and it couldn't be more true. This whole situation, pandemic that we're in, it's been a real eye-opener for all of us in many realms. And stress by definition is not negative. We think of it as negative, but it's not, but it's a change. It's a considerable change to your anything, your life, your lifestyle, your work, your home, all of those. We have homeschooling now with kids and fear of pandemics and media telling you the world's going to end. And we have all these things. Then we go to work and our financial balance statements look hideous in the short term and there's nothing we can do about it. And yet our managers are doing a fantastic job. I get feedback all the time that they're upbeat and their employees are doing a fantastic job and they're doing everything they can to bring people back. And I've got messages from managers saying, I've missed my bowlers. It gives me chills like that. Just thank you. Thank you for your dedication to the bowling industry. Thank you, Dottie. I know we've had conversations that it's almost like in bowling, if you don't care, then you probably need to go somewhere else. This is a fantastic industry, but it is filled with passion and history and you have to care. And this is proving that we care. And the managers, all of you, it's very evident to me, you care a lot. And yes, we're going to get through it. Yes, this is probably the new norm. And yes, I think you said it earlier, I think we're going to be stronger as a whole. I don't know what it's going to look like. No, I don't think anybody does a year from now. It might look a little bit different, but it's going to be better and it's going to be stronger.
I could not agree more, Dustin. Well, thanks again. Viewers, I want to remind you that next week we are going to have Chris Keller from the All-Star Lanes in New York. New York has finally been able to open. So we're going to talk with Chris and hear a little bit about what he did in the meantime to try to get a center back reopened. So that's going to be a show you won't want to miss. Also, those of you that have issues, you have something that you need a little bit of help with, or even if you have an idea that you can't quite completely form out, we have a new segment to our show, 15-Minute Fix. And we will actually take a problem that you have and solve it on the show live. And don't get all freaking out here. If you're not real comfortable being live, we'll also just solve it on air, and you don't have to be a part of the actual show. So don't steer away just because you're not fond of the camera. But we are going to be doing that show. So if you have something that you would like a little bit of help with, successcoach@cubicaamf.com is who you can send that to, and I will put that in the comments of today's video. Also, we talked a little bit about earlier on today's show that families and kids were a little bit more hesitant, that the competitive bowlers and our loyalists were the ones that returned first. So we are actually planning a webinar on ways that you can get families back to your bowling center. So that's coming up a little later on this month. I believe that is coming up on September the 23rd at 3 o'clock. So make plans, watch Beyond the Frame. It will be on there, advertised on there, so be sure to watch that. Again, Dustin, thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us, and for all of those Air Force centers out there that are back open and not even open. Hats off for serving our military and their families. So I hope you all have a great afternoon, and keep trudging along, keep communicating with your customers, and keep thinking beyond the frame. Good afternoon, everyone.